I like my California shirt. I think I'm allowed to wear this because I'm from California, right? Hey everyone, it's Paige, and I'm here today with a review of Spider-Man Miles Morales by Jason Reynolds. So I've talked previously about how much I really love Jason Reynolds' writing, and the other book that I read by him was All American Boys that he co-wrote with Brendan Keeley, and that book is just really fantastic and everybody should read it. Anyone should read Jason Reynolds anyway. He's incredible. As I've also mentioned previously, I've also met Jason Reynolds, and he's really cool and really awesome. So when I heard that he was writing a book for Marvel, I was really excited about it. My buddy read this book with Sam, and we were both talking about, as we were reading through it, we weren't sure if it was considered YA or middle grade because it kind of had a feeling of both in it, which was really interesting, where it was this kind of like in-between genre, which I actually really liked because I blew through it in I think like 2 sittings. It's super short, it's only like 300 pages I think. And then there was also just like this kind of more serious tone to it, which I'll talk about in a second, which I think was more geared towards YA, but also is super relevant for middle grade audiences. When I rated this on Goodreads, I gave it 4 stars, so let's talk about the things that I did like. Spider-Man is not my favorite superhero. I don't even think he's in like my top 10 favorite superheroes, so when I went into this I was obviously a little apprehensive just because I've, number one, never read a Spider-Man novel before, and number 2, I've never really picked up Spider-Man comics from Marvel. Wasn't really interested in the movies. I'm still not interested in the new movie. When he was in Captain America, it was kind of like, okay, there he is, see you later kind of thing. So I was very tentative when I went into this, which is another reason why I'm really glad I buddy read it with Sam. It was nice to be able to talk to someone and have someone encourage me to read it while they were reading it. Not to mention that I think if this hadn't been written by Jason Reynolds, I wouldn't have liked it as much as I did, just because he does such a phenomenal job with weaving a story and then also weaving in like this social commentary that obviously is like super relevant, and it just feels so real. I feel like a lot of other YA stories just kind of ignore all this other stuff that's going on, and like YA is getting a lot better about it. Like The Hate U Give is really awesome. Jason Reynolds' other work is really great, and I know there's a ton of other authors who are doing great work, but that being said, like as far as like where Marvel stands and how whitewashed Marvel is right now, I think it's just wonderful that Jason Reynolds was able to bring in this character and make him feel very real and walk off the page and like you feel like you could be his best friend. He is also this Spider-Man hero for the city, so it's just very interesting. And Miles Morales is different from other Spider-Mans in that you don't get the typical Uncle Ben story and like all of that stuff. I expected this to be more of an origin story, which it wasn't. It just kind of jumped right into Miles's family life and like he's going to school and da-da-da-da, like all this stuff. So it wasn't typical for a Spider-Man novel of like, you kind of had to put aside what you know about Spider-Man and from the movies or comics or whatever, unless I guess you read the Miles Morales comics, in which case maybe you already know a lot about this version of Spider-Man. Either way, fabulous novel. But as I mentioned previously, there is this kind of social commentary aspect in it. Miles has a history teacher who's very racist and gross and just like, ugh, the worst kind of teacher that you could imagine. And he teaches slavery is like this good thing, which obviously it's not, and then he talks about the Civil War in a way that's very from a racist perspective, and he is always directing his comments towards Miles and Alicia. They're the only 2 students of color in that period that Miles is in, and Miles' spider sense is always tingling when he's in that class too, and like he constantly feels sick, like he's gonna throw up. And this teacher plays into a larger aspect of the novel too, but I don't want to give it away because obviously that's a spoiler, but I just think there's a really great, interesting narrative there of the entire story of Spider-Man and Miles and like everything he's going through and like typical teenage stuff, and he like really likes this girl and he's struggling with his classes and his parents are struggling for money and blah 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 blah, all this stuff. Also paired with this whole commentary about race and racism in America and how these teachers are teaching the content to their students. There are a couple of reasons why I didn't rate this a 5 out of 5 stars. Number 1 being that I felt like there could have been a little bit more emphasis on the Spider-Man stuff. Like it was a really great novel and I really could tell that like Miles was really struggling with his whole identity as Spider-Man, but I think it could have either been fleshed out a little bit more and the whole book could have been at least 100 pages longer, but I think because it's more of a middle grade sort of story that maybe certain things could be glossed over because younger readers may not notice it as much. I really did like the Spider-Man parts that were in it, and I just wish there had been like a little bit more of them. And the ending felt a little rushed to me too. I know that with stories like this, I always kind of wonder how much creative control the authors have themselves, since I know this is obviously a Marvel production. So I just kind of wonder like what Marvel told Jason Reynolds like when he was writing this of what he could and could not include, and obviously he has to stick to like the canon and stuff. So I just kind of wonder about that. Especially considering what Marvel is. It's such a huge corporation and it has a lot of problems in and of itself, and I actually stopped reading a lot of Marvel comics because of the issues that have been coming into light recently. I felt a little wary going into it because of that, but again, I think Jason Reynolds really does a great job and pushes Marvel a step forward in bringing this narrative to light of not all of Marvel is this horrible, evil corporation. So now the question is, when can we get a Miles Morales Spider-Man movie? I would be super excited for that. Although I hear there is a video game or something. I think Sam told me that because I saw gifs of it on Tumblr and I was like, oh my god, that looks awesome. So if you know anything about that, let me know. And unfortunately, the reason why I don't have the book with me is because I got it from the library because I'm super poor right now and I can't afford to buy new books. Support your local library. I will say one more thing about Miles. I really liked his character and his voice throughout all of this. I'm so tired of Peter Parker. We're gonna beat to death that your uncle is dead and that, you know, you're trying to get Mary Jane and blah blah blah. Like, oh my god, I just don't care anymore. I grew up with that Spider-Man. I'm tired of it. I'm done. This is like most of the reason why I don't really like Spider-Man is because I don't find Peter Parker that compelling or interesting. However, I think Miles Morales is amazing and we should all talk about him a lot more because he's just really great. One last thing that I really liked about this was that it was just really funny. Like, there were really great moments where I feel like Miles had really great interactions with his parents and his friend Genki, I think I'm saying that wrong, who was also really funny, and like they just had really great conversations. I think Jason Reynolds does a really good job of making the conversations feel very real, and that came across really well in this. That being said, if you've read this too, let me know in the links down below. I like hearing your guys' comments as always, even though I'm terrible about answering them. I'm so sorry. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Links down below. You can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, my blog, everywhere. So do that. Let me know your thoughts if you're gonna pick this one up, if you really like Spider-Man or whatever, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! I'm losing my voice. As I've also... oh my god, my camera's dying, but ow! I need a thesaurus when I film this.